You're listening to Her Money, Her Business, a podcast for women starting or growing their own business. And it features episodes about knowing your finances, improving your money confidence, and growing a profitable business that's built to last. If you wish you were good with money, want to feel more confident managing your money, or want to struggle less while making money, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Sonja Balzarolo, business financials coach, bookkeeper, and champion for women who want to be the master of their own financials. So let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to the Her Money, Her Business podcast. This is episode 27. So hello, thanks for joining me today. I am back from an extended break. I've had, I think, probably about 8 weeks off the podcast now. So we're now in February of 2024. And I'm really excited to get back into the podcast. I've had a lovely break, and now it's time to really knuckle down and into 2024. So I've already been back at work for at least 3 or 4 weeks. But just having that extra break for the podcast really allowed me to set my own goals and get everything ready for myself for the year. So I'm excited about what I have planned for this year, including some great things for this podcast. I have got a series that I'm starting called Everyday Business Heroes, and I'm actually looking for podcast guests. So this is really about talking and having conversations about everyday women in business and just talking about what business is really like out there. So to me, every woman in business is an everyday business hero. So I'm happy to talk to anyone and really discuss the ins and outs of business, because we've all got a story to share. We've all got things that we've learned along the way, and I'm really excited to get that series up and running in a few weeks. So if you're interested, you can head to my website, and there is a podcast application link there on the front page, and you'll be able to send your details in, and I'll get in touch with you if I think we'd be a good fit. So now let's get into the episode. So episode 27, I am talking about budgets and goal setting for your business. So what I've decided as part of my planning for this year is, inside the Money In, Money Out mini course Facebook group, I want to have a topic per month, because I know that the mini course, while the content there is great, there's lots of other things that I can be helping with, and I really want to provide the people that have invested in improving their money confidence to give them some extra additional support. And so I came up with the idea of having a topic or a focus point for each month. So I'm going to be doing that inside the Facebook group. But I'm also going to be sharing some of these things on Money News, which is my weekly newsletter, on Instagram, hopefully on some reels on Facebook, and obviously on this podcast as well. And that's why this topic today is about budgets and goal setting. So the topic for the month of February for me is all about setting goals in your business. So there's lots to say on the topic of goals and budgets and setting those things, getting yourself ready for the year. But what I also wanted to start with, and I talked about this on Money News a couple of weeks ago, is what not to do when you're setting goals. It is very easy when you're setting goals and budgets and things for the year to get overwhelmed, to procrastinate and not put your goals in place or finish putting them in place. And also you can get into feeding a negative money mindset by setting goals that are either too small or too big, or you're beating yourself up about not actually achieving the things that you've set to achieve. So I want to talk about some of the things that I really want you to think about not doing if you're going to go ahead and if you haven't already set your budgets and goals for the year. If you're going to start doing that, then yeah, I definitely want you to have an idea of some things not to do. So the first one I want to talk about is, don't make goal setting stressful. So if you're sitting down to set yourself some goals, and however you do that is up to you, the worst thing you can do for yourself is make it stressful. So make it fun. Find a way that actually works for you. What I mean by this is, find a process that works for you. So if you're creative, use a colorful process. If you like a formal, structured process, then do that. If you prefer to do handwritten goals over typed goals, or use an online goal setting app, there's plenty of those out there, then do that. Deciding what works for you and doing that will make you happier through the process, minimize your stress, and you're less likely to procrastinate. So, really make it an enjoyable experience for yourself. The second one is don't set goals that aren't meaningful to you. It's far more valuable and rewarding to work towards goals for things that you actually want to achieve rather than goals you think you should be achieving, or particularly monetary goals. I see this a lot. Set goals that are things that you actually want to work towards, or by following other people's goal setting formulas that can really take you off track. By all means, use an expert's goal setting formula. There's plenty, again, of those around at this time of year, but customize it for what you want. Delete things that are not relevant to you and just do what really is meaningful to you. Don't feel like your goals are set in concrete for the whole year. So this is part of procrastination around goal setting, is if you feel like if you set it now, you've got to stick to it for the whole year, or you have to achieve that by the end of the year. Goals can change just like life and business can change. Things can change for you and your business radically within the space of 12 months or a year. So, in saying that, so can your goals. So, if you need to change, adjust, delete, or upgrade your goals throughout the year, then go for it. They're your goals. And the last one I want to mention is don't set and forget. So, goals are a powerful way to set a path, work out steps to get to your goal, and also allow you to celebrate your progress along the way because you know you're achieving things. But they also take work and they take action, and tracking your progress is obviously part of it to know that you're achieving your goals. So setting and forgetting and then losing the motivation along the way, you're going to miss out on all the fun, the celebrating the milestones and the opportunities to switch direction if your plans fall off the path and you're not really heading in the right direction, or if you change your mind about a goal. So really, don't the point is don't set and forget. Do continue to review and work on those goals throughout the year, even if you change them up slightly or even if you pull them back if they're too much, but definitely don't set them at the beginning of the year and then disappear like New Year's resolutions. So one final point about this, and I did briefly mention it before, don't make yourself feel bad if you don't achieve them. You may not get by the end of the year to the end point at the goal you've set, but you would have had some progress. Did you realize it wasn't so important after all and you scrapped it? Was the timing not right for that particular goal? This is where the reflection happens. So whatever the outcome of the goals that you set for this year, it happens. It's all part of business and life. And as long as you have put some effort in and you've chosen to reflect and look at what's happening, set some steps in place to move forward with those goals, it's all progress. So don't beat yourself up. So now I want to talk about budgets and money goals. So I am a business financials coach. So if you worked with me, I'm always going to encourage you to set monetary goals, but they don't have to be the only goal. It can be part of a bigger picture of your goals for the year, because money generally is a byproduct of anything you want to set as a goal for your business generally. So if you're setting goals that are more around service, etc., or things you want to create this year for your business, then generally that's going to in turn create money for your business. So it is important to have monetary goals, but I understand that not for everyone that monetary goals are the top priority for goal setting. So I know from talking to clients that setting budgets and goals doesn't also come that easily to business owners. So I wanted to talk a little bit about where to start if you've never set financial goals or budgets before. First of all, budgets and goals are not interchangeable words, but they do go together. So setting a budget for your business also allows you to see a big picture that'll help you achieve your goals. So if you've got let's say, a monetary goal, if you wanted to bill or do revenue of $100,000 in this financial year or in this year, 2024, let's say, then if you don't have a budget set, which is basically a plan of how to get there, or a forecast of how to get there, a projection, if you like, then how are you going to make that happen? You're going to be flying blind, basically. So a budget is always a good idea. And it will help you look at whether your goals are achievable or not, or whether you need to do something to make them achievable and change what you're doing or have monthly goals that help you get there. So, where to start? So, if you've never set financial goals before, there's a few things that I'd suggest to ease you into it. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is that if this is your first year in business or your first 6 months in business, you're not going to have a lot of data to use to set a budget. So a lot of it might be you guessing what is possible. And that's okay, because a budget is, again, not set in concrete. It's just a plan to help you move forward. But if you have been in business for a year or more, then you're going to have some excellent data and information that you're going to be able to use to help you set a budget. So it's much easier to go and get that information if you've got, let's say, 12 months or more of data and information. So where do you get this information? For example, you'll have sales stats, you'll have order numbers, you'll have accounting software perhaps, or manual records. You might have your diary where you've written orders in, a spreadsheet that you've set up for tracking things. Any online systems you might have used, like Facebook and Instagram, they have insights in them, they have ads data, etc., depending on what you're looking for and what you're wanting to track and add into your budget. But there's lots of places that you would have data to tell you what you've done in the last 12 months if you're trading for 12 months or more. Even if you've only got 6 months worth of data, if it's your first 6 months in business, there is something there that you're going to be able to use. Once you start delving into statistics, if you've never done this before and looked at your business this way, then you'll probably find that you have quite a lot more information to go off than you initially imagined. So the second thing I'm going to say is that spreadsheet is by far the easiest way for you to set up a budget. Okay, so the basic categories that you are looking at when you're setting a budget is sales. Then you're going to be looking at sales numbers, and we'll talk about this in a bit more detail. Expenses, what you're spending in your business. And you want to divide these down into categories relevant to your business. So let's say you've got a spreadsheet open and you've got a worksheet. So down the left-hand side of your spreadsheet, what I'd like you to have is all the categories. So usually, traditionally, and this is basically the basis of a P&L, you would have sales at the top, expenses in the middle, and then in the bottom you would have profit. And the profit line is basically the sales minus the expenses at a raw basic level. So down the left-hand side of your spreadsheet, you're starting from scratch. You're going to have the sales. Far easier if you break down your sales into the different revenue streams that you have. If you have more than one, you may not. And then in the expenses section, you should have a category for each of the main things you may purchase for your business. So that may be paying rent, it may be electricity, it may be the internet, a mobile phone, insurances, supplies, cost of goods for making your products if you've got products, the cost of your website, all those sorts of things that are set costs that are happening throughout the year. Advertising is another one. So set that all up on a spreadsheet. You can always add to it if you come across things as you come along this or as you go along, but that's what I'd like you to do down the left-hand side. Across the top, you would have the months of the year. So let's say January to December, if that's what you're working on, or if you're doing financial year, it might be July to June. Whatever you're going to work on to set a budget for, then put those months across the top. Now what you're going to do is start to enter in the figures of the data that you have. So this is just your starting point. So, for example, if from July to December last year, you've got all the statistics out of your accounting software for those different categories, then you'll be able to just go and plug those figures in of what you actually spent in those months last year, or for the whole year, whatever the period in time is. So just plug in what you know for now. So if you only have October to December last year, then just plug those figures in to start with. So if in October last year you had $15,000 in sales, you spent $200 on insurance, $300 on Facebook ads, $50 on rent, $100 on your mobile phone, just plug those actual figures in. Once you've done that, and that's for both sales and expenses, then you want to have a look at the blanks. So if, for example, as I just mentioned, you've only got stats for, let's say, July to December for last year, then you're going to probably have January to June blank. So have a look at the average of what you've spent in the other months and just manipulate that figure or use that figure, because these are projected budgets. It's giving you an idea on what you may spend to give you a starting point. So if the average is, let's say you spent, or if you know you spend $50 on rent every month, then just plug that across the whole year. If you, on average, have spent $108 on Facebook ads each month, and you know you'd like to continue that, then plug that in across the year. Now, once you've filled in all those blanks, don't be too concerned about what the figures are right now. Let's just plug them all in as a starting point. And put a formula in if you can, or add it up manually if you don't know how to do formulas for each line, so that you get a yearly tally on the right-hand side of what it costs you for 12 months for each of those categories, including your sales. Then in the profit line down the bottom, just do a formula or manually calculate for each month and for the whole year what the sales minus the expenses for each month and across the year, what that ends up being. So what you're going to have there is a total number of sales that you estimate for the year, total number of costs that you estimate for the year, and then the sales minus the cost of the expenses is what your profit's going to be for the year. So that's your basic starting point. Now, what I want you to think about is, have you set a monetary goal for the year? Do you have in your head, as an example, that you want to have sales of $100,000 this year? So let's say last year you did 75,000. You think, okay, this year I'm going to aim for 100,000, and it is likely you're going to go up if you're starting to build momentum in your business. Completely up to you what that momentum is going to be. If you think you'll double this year, then you might set that as 150 for the year if you were 75 last year. It's completely up to you what you come up with. But in your mind, if that's the revenue figure you're aiming for, what does the spreadsheet tell you based on what you've plugged in so far? So it might, for the moment, it might say $100,000. So then you've got a gap if you were aiming for 150 of $50,000. So now I want you to closely look at the sales lines. So if you've been able to, or if you haven't been able to, go back and fill in what you can around the different revenue lines. So if you started with a sales line and it just said $10,000 per month, break that down on your spreadsheet into different lines for the different revenue streams. So if that was per month, if it was $10,000, if $8,000 of that was coaching and $2,000 of that was book sales, then let's have two separate lines, one for coaching, one for book sales, and have a line beneath each that gives a number. So, for example, if coaching was $8,000 and you had 4 coaching clients paying $2,000 each, then you would have 4 in the line that's for the numbers, because that's going to allow you to play around and see where you can increase things to make up the gap in your budget for what you've set for yourself. So if, for example, you had $10,000 per month across the months, and that comes to 120,000, and you were aiming for 150, then you might go back, and if every month you had 4 clients coaching paying $2,000, in a couple of those months you might have a goal that increases that to 5. And that might make up the deficit. I'm not doing the sums here, so it probably doesn't, but just as an example, you can play around with those numbers to say, right, well, in April and in July and in September, I'm going to add an extra coaching client at $2,000, and that's going to add in another $6,000 onto the bottom line. Then you might think, okay, well, I could probably sell more book sales and going to a couple of expos in these months. So I might increase my book sales in those months, and that'll add some more revenue. So you can start to play around with your budget to get that budget to achieve what it is that you were aiming for in sales, what you think you might do. So that's your sales. Now, the opposite of that is that if you've looked at the numbers and you've put as much in there as you can, and you think, I really can't put anything else in there to try and get to this goal I have 150, then maybe you pull your goal down. And maybe you say, well, 75,000 last year, let's do my projected goal as 120 for the year, and I've already achieved that. I've got some realistic figures in there of how many coaching clients and books I could sell through the year. Then you've got something in your mind that is realistic, and you've got a bit of a mud map there to say, right, well, in these months, this is how many coaching clients I need to have and how many books I need to sell to achieve that figure. So do the same with the expenses line. So if you can see that whatever you've set as your sales budget, if your expenses are getting a little bit out of control, so if they're eating away at all of those sales you've made and your profit is not much on the bottom line there, then that gives you an opportunity to play around with the expenses and say, right, well, am I spending too much money in some of these areas? Where is all the money going? Is there anything that I can pull back on or get a better rate on, or et cetera, et cetera? Do I really need these things in my business if I'm not making the money to pay for them? So that's where it really lets you have a good look at your expenses across the year. If you look at it and think, actually, I'm making a huge amount of profit here, that might be a time where you think, okay, well, it's time to invest in some extra Facebook ads marketing, or to invest in getting myself a part-time VA to help ease the load, those sorts of things. So you can really look at your figures and do some planning based on what you're projecting the year to look like from a sales and expenses and a profit point of view. So I hope that has helped. I hope it wasn't too confusing for you. I know it was a lot of information. You might need to listen to this a couple of times if you are really interested in going ahead and doing this. But once you get started, particularly if you've never done this before, I think you'll see the real value in it. It's extremely helpful in not only obviously setting a budget and allowing yourself to see what you need to achieve each month to achieve your financial goals or whatever other goals you have, but it's also really just helpful in you getting to know your numbers really well. If you've never done that before, if you're not feeling confident with numbers, this is a great starting point to really get you understanding what your business looks like from a financials and a numbers point of view. Now, if you feel like you need more help with this, you can work with me in two different ways outside of this podcast. You can join the Money In, Money Out mini course, which sponsors this podcast. Or you could also book in for a business financials coaching session with me via the website, and we can work on this together. So there's just some ways you can get some extra help if this has been a bit too much for you, but you know that you would like to get this in place as quickly as possible. So that is the end of the podcast for today. Thank you for sticking with me. That was a lot of information. I hope that it's been helpful to you and you have enjoyed working your way through the information around budgets and goal setting. We will have another podcast out next week that is also on the topic of goal setting. So hope you join me then for episode 28. In the meantime, have a great week. Bye for now.
This episode was brought to you by my mini course, Money In, Money Out. Head over to our website, blossomingbusiness.com.au, for this episode's show notes found under podcasts. And if you're interested, jump on the Money In, Money Out waitlist to find out when it's next available. You've been listening to the Her Money, Her Business podcast with me, Sonja Balzarolo. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review over on iTunes. It really does help to get the podcast out to more people. And of course, I love hearing your feedback. Thanks for listening. And here's to knowing your finances and growing your business. It's your money, your business.